I'm Steve Lascalzo, and this is The Way. Welcome to This is The Way podcast's coverage of the Skeleton Crew series. This is the Season 1, Episode 2 recap and discussion. This will be our fourth podcast release about the show Skeleton Crew and number 166 overall for the program. If this is your first episode joining This is The Way podcast, well, thank you. We happen to share a debut date with Disney Plus and, coincidentally, the show The Mandalorian. Today, though, we're talking about Way, Way Out Past the Barrier, Season 1, Episode 2 of The Skeleton Crew. But listen, any Star Wars content already released could be referenced during our recap and discussion. These kinds of episodes that I produce are deep dives. My hope is that you're going to find value in this. You'll enjoy it. And of course, keep coming back for more. Now, if you're ready, we can talk about who brought us this adventure. Of course, Disney and Lucasfilm are the ones that brought us this adventure, but directing Episode 2, taking over for the showrunner, this time it's David Lowery. He's a bit of an odd guy. I don't know if you've seen interviews with him, but I have, and I'm going to tell you this. There's nothing that I saw on his resume that says Star Wars to me. He did direct 2 Disney films that have kids in them, Pete's Dragon and Peter Pan and Wendy. He also worked with Bryce Dallas Howard, who was in Pete's Dragon, and she's directed episodes of The Mandalorian and Ahsoka, and then he worked with Jude Law on Peter Pan and Wendy. He also directed The Green Knight, which was released just a few years back. I think it's based on, the old story about Gawain and the Green Knight. And in that movie was another Star Wars alumni, Joel Edgerton. Showrunner and Episode 1 director John Watts co-wrote Way, Way Out Past the Barrier with co-creator Christopher Ford. And I think they did a great job. This is a prime example of what I've been asking for in the writing of the shows. The action makes sense. The character decisions make sense. The characters stay true to themselves. This does it much better than some of the recent shows have done. I don't know if that's talent or if it's just care or the right people are working on the show. I don't know what it is. I just know that it's better. It's one of those things. If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, then it's probably a duck. I just know it when I see it. The thumbnail description available on the show's Disney Plus Episodes tab and the episode page description, they're identical. They were for the first episode and they are again for Episode 2. It says, "A surprising first stop marks the beginning of an unexpected journey."
I'm going on an adventure!
I see unexpected journey and I immediately think of The Hobbit, but that's just me. The runtime shows up as 32 minutes in parentheses on the Disney Plus show page for Episode 2. I always check to see how long from the first action to the credits is, because that number in parentheses that they show, that includes previously on footage and all of the credits, including the ones that run at the end of the foreign language versions. So the action from first shot to cut to black in Episode 2 runs 23 minutes, 50 seconds or so, and that is from the start of the opening theme to the appearance of the director credit at the end. That's what I'm talking about. That's an 8-minute difference, though, from what is shown in those parentheses. It's also a full 18 minutes shorter than Episode 1.
Okay, then.
The director of photography for Episode 2 is once again Sean Porter, same as Episode 1. Scholl and Chang are back as production designers. The editor this time is Terrell Gibson, Terel Gibson. He edited a couple episodes of the Hawkeye series, in fact, the first 2, and that was really all that I saw that really kind of applies to Disney or, I don't think he has any Lucasfilm work under his resume there. Mick Giacchino handles the show's score again. He stands on his own. I'm sure being Michael Giacchino's son doesn't hurt, but remember, Mick's dad was the composer for Rogue One. But Mick is doing great work. He's pulling in like a little bit of Indiana Jones, a little bit of the Goonies, maybe some E.T., Gremlin. He's pulling in these really great motifs, and I don't know if it's intentional or just something that's in his DNA, you know what I mean? Like something that is just part of who he was growing up. It's just fantastic. I really like the score so far. And there's no changes in the other crew positions that we mentioned last week, so we'll skip those and get to the cast.
Yeah? Good.
Jude Law is the first acting credit, and though it's not stated in this episode, I think our supposition that he's Captain Silvo is going to be confirmed. I don't know why else you would list him first in episode 1 if he wasn't that character. The kids, again, get prominent credits right behind him, and I think the ordering of the credits this time does help support that supposition that Law is playing Captain Silvo / Jadna Naywood. Ryan Kira Armstrong plays Fern, and this time her name appears first. Next is Kiriana Crater, who plays KB. Then Robert Timothy Smith, who plays Neil, or at least voices him. And then last this time is Ravi Cabot Conyers. I wonder if it is due to the action of the episode, or maybe the ordering is just Disney and Lucasfilm. They're saying, hey, let's give each of the kids a turn with their name first after Mr. Law, but we'll have to wait until episode 3 to see if Crater or Smith gets listed first. Nick Frost, finally featured. He is the voice of SM-33. Frost is a frequent collaborator of one of J.J. Abrams' friends, Simon Pegg. That guy's got some Star Wars experience. He's also got Star Trek experience, of course, and Simon Pegg does a lot of writing. And they're both Edgar Wright's Three Flavors Cornetto actors. They both appeared in Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End. Simon Pegg's not in the show as far as I know. Frost was also in Attack the Block with John Boyega. He played Santa Claus on Doctor Who. He was in Snow White and the Huntsman. He's voiced for Ice Age movies and games. And he did write and act in a movie about an alien. Maybe you remember him from Paul.
We're men of science. You know, we believe in the establishment of a biological order through the maelstrom of physical and chemical chaos.
Tunde Adebimpe is back as Wendell, Wim's father. It's a very short appearance in this episode, but I think he does a fine job in his short time on screen. And I don't know who voices the security droids, but I guess it's probably, that group of Matthew Wood, Sam Witwer, Shelby Young, David Collins, those people who are common voice actors as doing additional voices. I think it's got to be some of those unless we're going to find out later, like, oh, it was a secret cameo. Melna, the kind-hearted alien who tries helping the girls, I think it's a Thelan, played by Paloma Garcia Lee. She was in episodes of Elsbeth and Dr. Odyssey. You might recognize her from one of those shows. Beef is Dominic Burgess. Beef, what a name, right? I'm still not sure who this guy is and what he did in the episode, but I looked up the guy's resume. It's extensive, so I don't think it's a stretch to say that he's just a good character actor. Toot Oriole is Alan Resnick. Now, if you say it faster, Toot Oriole, tutorial, you're going to hear it. Resnick had a YouTube channel called Alan Tutorial. It is best described as just a spot for the surreal. I mean, seriously, if you look at those videos, you read about those videos, very strange, wild stuff. The Fry Cook is voiced by Anthony Adamanuik, with David St. Pierre performing the movements. Now, I did not realize who Adamanuik is, but I looked up his work and I realized this is the guy who plays the neighbor Sean in What We Do in the Shadows, which is a Hulu and FX show. He does a lot of Trump impersonating as well. The Greasy Creature is voice actor John Gemberling's voice, and Dane DeLiegro is in the suit. I think Greasy Creature is also the slug looking like, the big thing that takes the credit from the Fry Cook's hand. Not 100% sure. Marty Matulis is back reprising his role as Vane. Yes, this is the same character from Season 3 of The Mandalorian. Gunter actually gets some lines this time, played by Steve Urkel. Played by Jaleel White, who played Steve Urkel on Family Matters. Brutus, once again voiced by Frank Tatasciore and performed in The Stoop by Stephen O. Young. Dale Souls, she must have a great agent. I know she didn't have a line, I don't think. I do think she features prominently in just one split-second scene where she's pointing the gun at the kids, but she gets listed in the credits as Chaelt, or Chaelt. Now, if you don't mind, I think that covers the chef, recipe writer, and ingredients of the show. Now let's see how the dish turned out.
He can go about his business.
You can go about your business.
Move along.
Move along. Move along.
Before we get started, I'm wondering, do you have the ad-supported Disney Plus version? I mean, holy moly. How many times can they interrupt 24 minutes of television to show the same 3 or 4 commercials? You know, the weird thing is, this isn't making me want to pay to watch without ads. It's just getting me angry. I grew up watching ads on TV that we had no other choice. I'm fine with that, but this is just stupid. I feel like telling the advertisers, I hate you now. And I know this is not going to change no matter how much I complain, but wow, it's really bad. And so this is the second episode. It's much shorter again than episode 1, and you have a previously on segment now to get through. And it made me laugh when my youngest said, "We already watched this," like 3 or 4 times. She is not familiar with this type of TV watching, of course. So after the episode 1 refresher, we get the Lucasfilm Limited slate and the Star Wars characters illuminated by lightsaber, and then we rejoin the kids on the ship as they hurtle through lightspeed.
You idiot, what did you do? We're gonna explode into a million pieces! I can turn it off, How?
It appears to me Wim doesn't actually do anything to get the ship out of hyperspace, even though he says, I'll handle it. You know, from the Lego set that was announced, we know what the name of the ship is called. Onyx Cinder. I don't think that's too important. Maybe it's a tip-off to something else, but I don't think so. Wim doesn't actually touch anything, right? When the ship wobbles and somehow comes to a stop slowly out of hyperspace. I cannot recall this kind of exit from hyperspace before. It also introduces some questions, but I think if you don't try to explain why it happened that way, I think that's better. I think that's okay, you know, if you don't try to explain why this exit from hyperspace was a little different. It's not like there's a crackling fire in space or something like another show tried to do. Now, if you haven't noticed, the ship was upside down when it was underground on At-Attin, because the seats in the cockpit are now right side up. So that artificial gravity has them standing now where the seats were above their head, right? So they were actually walking on the ceiling when they were coming into the ship. The kids were just screaming moments ago, right? But now they either recognize or maybe they learned about hyperspace on At-Attin and just never experienced it. And now they're kind of, okay, there's also this realization that, hey, we're in trouble now and we're far, far away.
This is so bad. We need to turn around and go home right now. Okay, easy. If you press another button, I swear
Things go from bad to worse, and they hear what could have been a peg-legged pirate approaching, you know, the thump of the foot. Instead, it turns out to be SM-33, a mix of a protocol security assassin type droid, and he's missing his captain. It threatens our heroes because to him, they're intruders. He's not concerned with how long he's been deactivated. He's just concerned, hey, there are intruders. Captain, where are you, Captain? It's Fern who steps up with yet another lie, and this works very well.
Hey, droid.
What do you want?
What's your name?
There are some who call me SM-33.
Well, SM-33, I have some bad news. I killed your captain.
Most unlikely. You seem ill-favored for combat.
So I'm not sure if there are some who call me part of the line where SM-33 introduces himself as a nod to Monty Python or not, but it was the first thing that popped into mind for me.
There are some who call me Tim.
Again, Fern, she's a frequent liar, so we're not seeing any consequences for that lying, though. Everything, including this lie, seems to be working out for her. I hope by the end of the show that she learns her lesson, but, maybe she doesn't. I mean, not everyone does learn a lesson in life, after all. Also, it works so well that in this case, she may be captain for life.
What am I to do with these stowaways? Captain.
Hey, no fair! I wanted to be the captain!
As crew, you may challenge the captain to a battle to the death.
No, that's okay.
Now, we've had it established that she is smart. That we had that interaction with her mom in the first episode. Maybe she's also very well read on protocols of gangs and pirates. We don't know. Fern commands Smee to teach her how to fly the ship, but it is KB that understands this quick start instruction guide, and I like that. I loved Wim in the first episode, but now seeing him in episode 2, I'm starting to feel like the rest of the group is. This kid may be a little clueless.
Now, SM-33. Show me how to fly my ship.
It's simple. Primary acceleration, pitch, yaw, roll, trim control, secondary acceleration, rear thrusters, side thrusters, base thrusters, secondary base thrusters, tertiary thrusters, rear shield, front shield, and finally, flaps. Got it?
Yeah, makes complete sense. What does this one do? No!
That's the emergency hull demolition sequencer. You fool. Never, ever, ever touch that.
I'm not gonna touch it. I wish you hadn't said that. Can I fly the ship? No!
I would say that he's going to get them into real trouble, but he already has. Smee thinks, hey, we need some critical repairs on the ship, and he suggests a port where they can get what they need, no questions asked. Although, if he was going to repair it in space, you don't need anything, right? So, what did he expect? I mean, the crew, Fern and the kids, they just want to get home.
At-Attin, take us to At-Attin.
Might you be thinking of At-Attin?
No.
Al-Alcor, Aldani, it's a sulphurous bog world.
Aldani we've heard about in Andor, but it wasn't a bog world when we saw it. Al-Alcor, I know nothing about. Attilan is the planet that is only shown in Rebels, but very prominently. If you didn't watch that animated show, it's a desert-like planet where the rebellion, the Phoenix group, had established one of their first bases. This is where Sabine Wren gets her lightsaber instruction in order to wield the darksaber. And then there's a creature that's called the Bendu that helps Ezra and Kanan learn a little bit more about balance in the Force. This is also where Grand Admiral Thrawn defeats the Bendu after discovering the base, and that was before the end of that series. So the rebels are forced to find a new base, and before the end of the show, they do, on Yavin 4.
No! At-Attin!
Tell me then, Captain, which one is At-Attin?
The score definitely reminds me of the musical cues that I hear in The Goonies whenever the kids are talking about a mystery. And you probably didn't need proof, but maybe you don't remember, or maybe you never watched The Goonies. The mystery cues are very appropriate because we're slowly finding out, especially in this episode, there is more than just an adventure in this show. Smee may have only awakened after the crew was already in hyperspace, so asking him where he just was, he may not know. So he's not aware of where the Onyx Cinder came to rest, if that's the case, and not only does he not know where At-Attin is, he doesn't seem to know it exists. The first thing I thought of was Kamino and how it didn't appear on a map for Obi-Wan, and then Luke and Ahch-To, Luke being missing and them having to find a map to Ahch-To.
You see the echo of where it all is going to go. Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme, every stanza kind of rhymes with the last one. Hopefully it'll work.
There is a realization setting in for our core four. Even Neil gets upset with his friend.
Wim, you promised we wouldn't get in trouble, but now we're way out past the barrier, in so much trouble that we're lost forever.
So 2 episodes, and then 2 titles coming directly from the script. Way out past the barrier, spoken by Neil. I like that a lot, actually. Remember, these kids know of stars, but they never saw them because of the barrier. They didn't have a way of preparing themselves for what was going to happen either. It's not like they had a reason to know where they were in the galaxy on a star chart, or even a rudimentary map of the galaxy at all, which is crazy if you think about 3-dimensional space. Even if they had a map, it would be difficult to tell people who don't see it on their map where At-Attin is if you don't have one of those maps with you. They've heard of hyperspace, but we also know from Star Wars you can't simply say, all right, how long were we in hyperspace? And then jump back that long and find the planet, even if you were really sure what path you took. There are calculations that have to be done. And yes, you have Smee, but he doesn't have any of that data available to him. The ship might not have that information either. It's very dangerous to jump to hyperspace or hyperspeed without knowing where you're going.
It's not all my fault!
Shall I throw him out of the airlock for insolence, Captain?
Just bring us to that starport you mentioned. Someone there can give us directions home.
Aye, Captain. Prepare for hyperspace jump in 3, 2, 1.
Hey, we know it's mostly his fault, right? I mean, yes, the girls dared them to dig out more of the door before they had a chance to think about it and then actually tell some adults. But they're all involved. Wim bears most of the responsibility for touching the button, right? He storms off after his friend Neil yells at him like, hey man, you're supposed to be my friend. Fern takes the only option left. She tells me, take us to that port. I love the little small details in this scene. Like Smee, he only really hits one button. So maybe the port is like a favorite spot, or maybe it's even the last spot this ship was before heading to At-Attin. And then there's the rat-like creature that pops out of Smee's eye socket. Well, it crawls back in this scene. And the kids, you look at their faces, they're still a little weary of heading into hyperspace, even though they just experienced it. And the title screen comes in after the jump. We head back to At-Attin, even if the kids can't, right? There are security droids on the ground. Maybe they were tipped off by a ship leaving through the barrier, but no. One of the droids says it was a seismic disturbance. So I'm starting to wonder about this ravine. I mean, the Onyx Cinder, it was in the middle of the ravine. So maybe it wasn't the only ship that made it to the planet. Maybe another one cut that ravine into the ground and then covered up the Onyx Cinder that was already sitting there. Not by sand. Maybe there's a cover-up involving the government, too. I mean, we don't hear about or see that other ship, if there was one. So maybe the government saw that ship, didn't see the Onyx Cinder, and covered everything up. Think about it. Street blocked off. That ends up being a shortcut to the school, so clearly that at one time may have been a quicker route. So why with all that technology wouldn't they have just constructed a road again, or filled the ravine, or made a bridge? It seems more like they just wanted people to avoid that area. So maybe they didn't want people digging around for pieces of a downed ship, or whatever was left behind that couldn't be easily found and then whisked away. Maybe there is much more to this planet than just its isolation.
Search Team 4, reporting in. Source of seismic disturbance not found.
I think the fact that the droids are talking is just for our benefit, right? Because why wouldn't they just record this information and then share it internally? They're speaking out loud for us, the audience, so we know what's going on. And Wendell just came from seeing his son take off in his starship. He's panicked. He's in shock. The droids, they're only concerned at the moment with him being in what they call a restricted area. again, that kind of adds a little mystery to what's going on in there. I'm okay with how this is sold to me here. I do think the harder you try and keep a secret, the more some people will get curious and then try to find out your secret. So just closing off the road, not talking about it, letting, the woods take over the area again, that seems to make sense. But now these droids are patrolling, because what could a guy wandering the woods at night with a bike helmet find? They're not really, hey, stand back or whatever. They're just calm. And Wendell, again, he's stuttering. He's in shock. He just saw the starship take off. But he tells the security droids now his son and 3 kids left in a starship. And the droids say, that's impossible. Again, I mean, it's not impossible. We just saw it happen, you bucket of bolts. But Wendell is worried because they're probably way, way out past the barrier. The droids pick up on that and then say, well, that's against the rules, going out past the barrier. I mean, that's their concern. So Wendell's probably thinking, yeah, go ahead, go get them. Let's punish them.
They just took off in a starship.
A starship? Impossible. Starships are not permitted to enter or leave.
It could be out past the barrier by now.
Breaching the barrier is a serious violation. The supervisor will not.
You gotta find them. It's not safe out there. You gotta bring him back.
Of course. Come with us, sir.
I gotta find my son!
But what is this barrier for? It was the seismic disturbance that registers, not a ship leaving the barrier? Unless maybe they don't expect anyone to leave without first making noise on the planet. I find it odd that they monitor ground disturbance, but not vessels leaving. I mean, I probably wouldn't if SME hadn't already introduced into me the idea that there's this mystery surrounding this place. But now I'm starting to wonder, At-Attin, do they have scanners even for approaching craft? But maybe those in charge truly do not expect anyone to leave because what? They can't? Are there no starships on the planet? Why the ground monitoring? Unless something's buried underground. And maybe, like, those mines that Grandpa supposedly told Fern about, or the sewer, sometimes a lie has this grain of truth. Maybe that's the case here. Because think about it. Each one of the ones that Fern told last episode were about things happening underground. She told a lie about the mines, sewer trouble, people disappearing, people getting trapped underground and never seen again. And then Wim reads this story about a great beast and a cave. Could this be warnings about a great beast underground? Maybe one being kept hidden for experimentation that in the past woke and wreaked havoc. We got a beast in we had this adventure in the forest where it was kind of telling people, oh, this Jedi went off into the forest and encountered all these bad things. Don't go out into the forest, right? Because you might find something. Don't go underground because there might be a beast. Maybe there was something that happened that cut off a road, cut a ravine into the ground, buried the onyx cinder, caused security droids and the planet to value monitoring ground disturbances over vessels potentially leaving the barrier. Maybe there's something like a Zillo beast kept underground for study. Maybe that's why they're so closed off. Maybe these are the creatures that Jedi might fear that Palpatine wanted to study in secret in the Clone Wars. They appeared in the Clone Wars animated series and also the Bad Batch. So Wendell and the rest of the people may not know what they're trying to keep secret, but he does know it's safer on the planet and it's dangerous past the barrier. And apparently the supervisor's not going to be happy too. He's a supervisor, right? So it's not him. It must be his supervisor's supervisor. There was a slight touch of the Force theme under the exchange that they have. So does that indicate that there really is some kind of Jedi temple underground? Maybe that's what it is. What if instead of mines, they're Kyber crystal mines? I mean, those would make a pirate rich if they were to have found it and then sold the location out to the Empire. So is the barrier really a man-made thing? What if the barrier is something done through the Force? Maybe there are Jedi meditating underground and those red lights through the green clouds are something other than man-made.
Look! I think they died in a duel. I want to show you something else. Come on!
I love that there's this mystery. I love the sense of exploration we get following Wim after he stormed off. I just love this show is doing it for me. And then remember, they thought Smee was a skeleton at first, and now they find real skeletons. Both appear to be human too, probably killed each other before the ship crashed because one, if you notice, is pinned to the wall with a knife. He's upright, and we know that the ship was buried upside down. And Wim and Neil are friends, right? Wim is finding adventure in this. He is enjoying looking through the captain's cabin. Neil, he just wants to get back to family. He enjoyed playtime back home, right? This is something else.
Isn't it a wizard? All these skeletons and things are really neat and everything, but don't you want to go home? Go home? We just got here.
What a contrast between the question from episode 1. I mean, don't you want to do something exciting? And then Neil asks, like what? Well, this is what. Compare that with, don't you want to go home from Neil in this episode? And then, but we just got here from Wim. I mean, they can go anywhere they want, have any adventure they want. But Neil, faced with this harsh reality of adventure, he's only worried about family.
All this stuff is creepy and gross. And the ship, it smells bad. Do you really want to sleep here? I just want to get to the starport.
Wim's disappointment that his friend might not be up to the task of adventure is washed away when he hears, hey, we're going to the starport. And so they arrive, and I really tried hard to look at all the ships. The only one that I recognized was the one from episode 1 that the pirates that were led by Silvo at the time used to board the bulk freighter. That one I saw, it was prominent. And I saw an X, someone said Hondo Anaka's ship was parked there. I looked everywhere, and I don't know how you could possibly tell that one of the ships was his for sure. I mean, maybe it was a ship like it, but I don't know how you can tell for sure. It looked more like there were ships that were modified versions of ships that we have already seen. Like, I saw a cockpit that looked like the Millennium Falcon's cockpit, like a Corellian YT-1300, but it clearly wasn't one of those. And I looked through all of those ships. I spent a lot of time doing it. I pulled up like Republic and Empire ships and tried to contrast. If you know for sure that there was one, then you must have heard from one of the people who made the show that, oh yeah, we put that in as an Easter egg. Otherwise, I feel like you're just guessing. So unless, like I said, there's some other thing that I'm missing, because I looked very carefully. But anyway, they get to the dock area, and there's a teak that greets them as the ferryman. And this type of alien I recognized immediately. I didn't have to go back and look, because Caravan of Courage and Battle for Endor were very impressionable on me as a kid. And I think this is one of the creatures from Battle for Endor. Smee says he's going to stay behind and work on the ship, and the kids bravely head into port on this rickety ferry that is even held together. I think there's tape. I wonder if it's holding a crack together or over a hole or something like that. It's got to be special space tape, right? Because it can't just be duct tape on this. The look on Fern's face when she like got onto the ferry, that was great. And these kids are going into this pirate port, not speaking any other language that I know of. So they're just trusting that most pirates speak basic, but they're without protection. And my first thought is, oh, these kids are getting kidnapped or they're getting sold into slavery or something like that. Even more troubling is when they pay the ferryman, the first time he pulls out his credits that he got from his dad. I mean, that creature, the teak, acts like he's immediately allowed to retire. He just runs off. Thankfully, Wim sees this, tries hiding the rest of what he calls his dataries, and I had to look that up. Apparently, it's a colloquial term for a galactic standard credit. To me, this calls to mind how sometimes, you got a silver coin, and sometimes it's a denomination that determines the worth. Sometimes it's the metal that gets stamped instead. And there seems like there might be another reason that we're probably going to hear about later, about why these Republic credits are so special.
Look, aliens. They're so weird looking. Can't you plug his trunk or something? I don't talk with my trunk.
I mean, to me, all the dialogue has been great so far. These kids are in awe. They're over their heads. They're not completely and utterly clueless. They are unprepared, though. and they head off together to find a place to ask for directions. Makes sense? I spotted the pirate that lost his eye in the gunfight at the beginning of the series in episode 1. He's getting a prosthetic eye. The pirate music helps set a tone for the scene. So there's scenes like guy smoking what looks like a hookah kind of a thing. And I thought for a second that might have been the same blue alien from The Mandalorian. Not the same character, but the same species. I don't think it is. And then there's this dancer outside of a club. And thankfully, I think this went right over my kids' heads. But so Fern tells them, let's keep going because this place is sketchy. She doesn't leave right away, almost gets lost. But the dancer at the door of the club spots her and appears concerned. And my thoughts immediately jump to, oh, she was trafficked, right? Maybe you didn't think that, but maybe you do now. Then we cut to KB. She's looking at a small creature in a cage. And from Googling, this appears to be a creature from Epcot's old Captain EO show called Fuzzball, or it's just a Fuzzball. It was an article, and it also listed a name for the rat-like thing that crawled out of Smee's eye. It said that character's name is Snowball. So if you had a white hamster or a mouse growing up, chances are you named it Snowball.
Death comes to all, but these bargains are rare. Watch the droids dance, friends dazzle in their lethality. Are you suffering from assassination frustration?
KB moves through the market, and the movie Gremlins came to mind for some reason. She comes across this salesman, and this one is called Tutorial. I like this detail where KB sees one of the orbs slice open a fruit. He throws a piece of fruit up in the air, and one of these security or assassin droids that he's selling slices it open. So when that droid moves towards her, she flips down her visor, I guess hoping for some eye protection, and then she backs into Fern, and then Melna grabs them. She appears to be trying to help. I get the impression that she saw herself in these kids. They're on their own in this pirate port. She wants to keep them from being kidnapped and sold into slavery. I might be reading into it, but that's kind of what I felt. And it's an important scene. Not just showing Fern, she may act tough, but she has no idea of what the real danger is. But Melna asks where they're from and treats At-Attin like a myth.
Honey, Borgo's full of the nastiest pirates in the sector. It's not safe here for children.
Pirates?
Yes, I have to get you to a transport. Do you have any money?
We got our own ship. We just need some directions home and then we'll be out of here.
Okay, well, where's home?
At-Attin?
Come on, seriously, girls, where are you from?
At this point, I was even more interested in what was so special about At-Attin. And the script has been building it. This mystery with these interactions with At-Attin outsiders. And every time I hear it, I think of AT-ATs or AT-ATs, as kids would end up calling them, based on the way the words appeared on trading cards and toy boxes. I mean, for the record, I don't care. You can call them AT-ATs or AT-ATs, doesn't matter to me. We join Wem and Neil wandering around. It's Neil's nose that brings them to this noodle bar of some kind. His stomach is calling him. Star Wars food never seems appealing to me. I mean, here is no different. They do appear to get served a bowl of noodles, and then this live creature is apparently split open and poured on top. Just gross. Apparently, each of these meals is only either 1 credit or maybe 10 credits each, because the fry cook asks for 2 decks.
That'll be what now, sir?
2 decks? Credits? What do you think this is, a Griffin charity?
Wim, Pam.
Criffing, a curse word like fricking in Star Wars. We had Carabas, Dank Farrik. Now, criffing is something from a Timothy Zahn Star Wars Legends novel, Vision of the Future. Wim pays the cook. The cook is amazed. Hey, this is gold Old Republic credit. He tries to rip them off for more, and they say this is Old Republic credits. I'm not 100% sure that they are, but I mean, there is an Old Republic crest that looks sort of like the Imperial crest stamped on one. So how old is it? Is it Old Republic, or just Republic old, like within the last 20-something years? Or is it like 100, 1,000 years old? We're not sure. We saw that crest. It was stamped on the credit when he was stashing them in their shoes. We'll see another scene later where we see the same image. Anyway, a fellow noodle bar patron alerts them. I think this is the greasy patron that they're talking about. But when he takes the credit by force from the cook, now he realizes, wait a minute, this actually is valuable. And Vane, a pirate we saw with Gorian Shard's crew in Season 3 of The Mandalorian, is nearby and asks them where they're from.
Where'd you two find an old Republic credit in mint condition?
His dad gave it to him for lunch money.
Lunch money? Where are you two from?
At-Attin?
At-Attin.
What? We're just looking for some directions.
Yeah, you and me both.
Again, disbelief from outsiders about this home planet. And all they know is, hey, these kids have some old Republic credits on them. Now everyone in the vicinity is paying attention. The kids are in danger. But it's a pirate port. There's pirates all over the place. There's no urgency for them. They don't have to rush to get these credits from them. They're kids. Easy prey. Wim does manage to create enough of a diversion by throwing his plate onto the grill, and he catches the fry cook on fire, I think, a little bit. Meanwhile, the girls are still trying to convince Mel that, hey, we're telling the truth.
You're hurting my arm.
Girls, whatever you're running from, you need a much better story than At-Attin.
But it's true.
Really? You're a couple of Linderlings from the lost planet of Eternal Treasure.
Lost planet? Eternal treasure?
The girls hear Wim calling for help, and then he and Neil are on the run. So they run into a pirate, and then they fall, so their pursuers catch up. But Fern bravely pulls a blaster out and fires into the air.
Everyone back off!
Now she's introduced weaponry, right? I like the detail of the falling debris from her skyward blaster shot, but I don't think she knows what she's getting into. Where did she get it from? I'm guessing the ship, because I don't remember seeing one on her in episode 1. Maybe she did have one, but I went back and I scrubbed through the footage here on episode 2, and you can clearly see one strapped to her leg when she's getting onto the ferry the first time. So she does have it. It's not like she pulled it out of thin air.
Put it down, little one. We just want the credits.
There ain't enough to go around, and I saw him first. Unless they really are from At-Attin.
Don't be stupid. At-Attin's a myth.
Once again, At-Attin is something of a fairy tale to these pirates. The mystery of this planet has me hooked. Now, I was worried Fern was a little bit too much bluster and not enough blaster the way she let Vane get way too close and then disarm her. Smee, though, shows up in the nick of time. No one recognizes him in this large crowd. So, to me, that's more confirmation that he's been gone a long time. No one says, hey, that's Captain So-and-so's droid SM-33. Oh, they're talking about At-Attin. And remember, Captain So-and-so? He got lost searching for it. None of that takes place. Back to the action. Smee is lumbering toward the pirates. And that recalls for me the beginning of the episode, where he was peg-leg walking toward the kids. He extends his arms. It seemed, getting ready to punch here for me. And then he says, I'm not leaving without my new captain. And Fern isn't leaving without KB.
And the boys.
And the boys. I liked the punch-up sequence very much. Smee punching Vane after that sneak attack blast. That was one-upped by the uppercut he gives to the fry cook. He just knocks him into next week. He uses the slug-looking pirate as a punching bag. That was cool. He uses his disc shields on his arms to fend off the blasts of the warthog pirate. And then he uses the heated-up discs from the blasts to basically brand the warthog, who, hey, squeals as good as a Gamorrean guard if you ask me. There was also a nice motif in the score that felt Indiana Jones to me. The fuzzball creatures, the Captain EO fuzzball creatures, they get set free after the cages were knocked over, which, not to get all 8th grade literature class on you, but it feels thematic. Smee suggests, hey, let's make a break for it. And they cause quite a commotion doing that. First, they knocked into a Klatooinian who was getting tattooed by an 8D droid. That's the kind of witch that we saw in Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi. And then later we saw one in the Book of Boba Fett as well. We see Gunter take notice. That is the character played by Jaleel White. He kind of notices them, and I'm guessing he probably alerts his captain. He's got cybernetics on his head, including one that replaces or is covering one of his eyes, and I did my best. Look, I freeze framed and I tried to read the Aurebesh. I don't think it said a word. It felt like it said SIRC, and that doesn't really stand for anything that I know of. The group actually does make it back to the ferry, but I'm not sure if this is the same ferryman who no longer cares because he's retired, right? Or maybe it's a different one, or maybe it is the same one. But if this is the same Teak, wouldn't he be aware of this amazing deal in Old Republic credits that he got? Wim should have just pulled one out anyway and shown it to get them in, but still, what's going to happen? The pirates, they were hot on their trail, so they would have just cut up to the Onyx Cinder. They would have saw where they went, and then maybe they do even more damage when they find out what the ship is and track it down.
Why did you bring us to a pirate port full of pirates?
Because we are also pirates.
We are not pirates.
You're not pirates?
We're kids.
Why cannot kids?
Smee got blasted. I can't believe that this is going to be the end of Smee. I mean, that would be terrible. I think that would be a waste, but maybe it is. But he's blasted by this stunning bolt of electricity. Neil rescues Snowball the mouse creature. Brutus, the pirate's second in command to Silvo at the start of episode 1, he now seems to be the one in control. And more than just that one ship that they were driving. He seems to consider himself in charge of the entire starport. Fern's feisty talk earns them all a stay in the brig. That may end up being the best thing for them, even if they don't know it yet.
Okay, enough moping. Let's figure out how to get home step by step. Step 1. Get out of the brig.
I just love the kid-like optimism in their first idea. Let's train Snowball to get the key. The crazy thing is, the creature actually does seem to understand Neil's instructions at first. And if I hadn't seen the trailer, I might have thought this was going to work.
Anyway, step 2. Find SM-33, fix him, and get him back to the ship. All of that is step 2? Step 3. We still need directions home.
Of course, it doesn't, and they have to move on, but I feel like there's going to be a part to play for each of the kids in the journey home. So far, Fern, she's a capable leader, right? KB's smart. Neil and Wim are friends, and I think it's only a matter of time before all of them get a hero moment. But how are they going to get out of this? Well, they're talking to each other, totally unaware of their surroundings. I don't know if they've ever been in this much trouble before. They're being watched, though. They don't know it. Their cellmate can also overhear everything they're saying.
Everyone thinks At-Attin is some sort of make-believe myth.
That's why those pirates were laughing at us.
I guess the legend is that At-Attin holds some sort of eternal treasure.
What? That's so dumb. Who would believe that?
So yeah, the other inmate hears about At-Attin, and they have a ship, and they just want to go home. But he also must have heard that he hears they're from At-Attin. They admit that they're from there. But even if he knows about this eternal treasure or whatever, he also heard them say, we don't know why people think it holds this eternal treasure, as KB calls it. So it's not just treasure. Could the eternal part indicate something else, like a cloning facility? So this individual, if he has the powers that we later see him have, maybe he knows that At-Attin's treasure is something other than credits, not just treasure of the physical kind, right? We'll have to wait and see. Wim wonders, hey, can we buy our way out? Fern points out, the credits are not a bargaining chip. You show them to them, they're going to take them. But why do they even still have them? Wouldn't Brutus have had them searched? I think it's only because the pirates think, hey, we have all the time in the world. I mean, they're just kids, right? They couldn't even get away even with help from that droid. But while the kids are arguing, the cellmate finally speaks. I will help you if you take me with you. But how are we going to get out, they ask. The key's all the way over there. We get the hand gesture. We see the key jiggle. It floats toward him. We hear the Force theme even. Wim has been reading about Jedi. Has he finally found one?
Can you keep a secret?
2 fun episodes. I'm loving it. I'm glad I waited a podcast about the second until after completing everything for the first, It was also nice to watch with the family without rushing through it. I will say my oldest daughter made it through the episode. My youngest did not. Despite it being much, much shorter, it just didn't hold her interest. I wouldn't say it was too scary for her. She really just didn't respond to it. But my 11-year-old did like it. I think my wife liked it as well. Star Wars, though, I have to face it. It's much more a me thing. I love both episodes. I thought it was smart to release them together. I have so many theories now about At-Attin and what this treasure is that the pirates think there's there, and then what might actually be the treasure that is there. They might be different, but also related somehow. I'm looking forward to seeing how this all plays out, especially with this group of kids. And that was the real wild card. Am I going to like the kids in this show? And so far, I do. Episode 3, we don't have a title yet, releases Tuesday, December 10th, 2024. I've got no forehand knowledge. I don't know how long it's going to be. I don't know the title. I don't have a description. We're just going to have to wait. 6 more weeks, though, of Tuesday releases to reveal the secrets of At-Attin and get our crew home. In the meantime, please join the discussion. Send email to thisisthewaypodcast@gmail.com. We have an Instagram and Facebook account. They both have the handle thisisthewaypod. And this December, I treated our X or Twitter account to a blue check mark. So go check me out there as well. Links should be up to date on our Linktree site. That's linktr.ee/thisisthewaypod. And coming up next for you is a short review of episode 3 after it releases. Hopefully again with my special guest reviewer, and it may take a while because I just got a new computer and I'm setting it up, but I have to deal with transferring all the preferences, and it may take a while to get the programs running that I need to record another podcast. So just bear with me. If you don't immediately get a review for episode 3, please understand why. Thank you for joining me for this episode of This Is The Way podcast. It was our recap and discussion on the second episode of the first season of Skeleton Crew. I'm your host, Steve Lascalzo, and this is The Way. May the Force be with you, always.